Imagine this. You walk into an interview room. Your heart is racing, your hands are cold, and you know you studied English for weeks. You practiced answers in front of the mirror. You even memorized perfect sentences. But then the interviewer smiles and asks one simple question. Tell me about yourself.
And suddenly, your mind goes completely blank.
Exactly. In that moment, many English learners do not fail because they are not smart. They fail because they make a few very common interview mistakes without even realizing it.
That is so true. Sometimes people think the problem is grammar, but actually, the real problem is panic.
Yes, and here's the surprising part. A lot of interviewers do not expect perfect English. They don't care if your accent is different. They don't care if you make one or two small grammar mistakes.
Wait, really?
Really. What they care about is confidence, clarity, and whether you can communicate naturally. And today on Talk Easy Daily, we're going to talk about the biggest interview mistakes English learners make, and more importantly, how you can avoid them.
This is going to be so useful because interviews can feel terrifying, especially when they happen in English.
Absolutely. And if you have ever left an interview thinking, why did I say that? Or why did I forget everything? Then this episode is for you.
And stay with us until the end because some of the mistakes we're about to discuss are incredibly small, but they can completely change the way an interviewer sees you.
Let's start with something important. Many English learners believe they need to sound like a native speaker during an interview.
Yes, I think a lot of people imagine they need perfect pronunciation, perfect grammar, and some kind of movie star accent.
But that belief can actually destroy your confidence, because the moment you try to sound perfect, you stop sounding natural.
That makes so much sense. You become too focused on every word.
Exactly. And when you focus too much on every word, your speech becomes slow, robotic, and uncomfortable. Imagine someone asking you a simple question like, why do you want this job? And instead of answering naturally, you pause for 10 seconds because you're trying to build the perfect sentence in your head.
I think viewers will recognize that feeling immediately.
And the interviewer notices it too. They may think you are unsure, unprepared, or nervous, but in reality, maybe you're just trying too hard to avoid mistakes.
So the goal is not perfect English. The goal is clear English.
Exactly right. Clear English always wins over perfect English. If you can express your ideas simply and confidently, you already have a huge advantage.
I think that's something a lot of viewers need to hear today.
And here's a quick tip. Instead of using complicated vocabulary to impress the interviewer, use simple words you can say comfortably.
Because simple English spoken confidently sounds much better than advanced English spoken with fear.
Exactly. For example, instead of saying, I aspire to leverage my interpersonal competencies in a dynamic corporate environment, you can simply say, I enjoy working with people and I want to grow in a professional company.
Wow, that second answer sounds much more natural.
And much more human. Interviewers want to talk to a real person, not a dictionary.
That is such a good point.
So today, we're going to break down the biggest mistakes English learners make in interviews, the hidden reasons behind those mistakes, and the exact strategies you can use to sound more confident, more natural, and more professional.
And if you're already thinking about a past interview where something went wrong, don't worry. By the end of this episode, you may realize it wasn't as bad as you thought.
Because sometimes one small change in the way you answer can completely change the entire interview.
And trust me, one of the mistakes we're about to discuss next is something almost everyone does without realizing it.
So, if you want to avoid that mistake in your next interview, keep watching. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make in interviews is memorizing every answer word for word.
Oh, yes. I know people who write full interview scripts and try to remember every sentence exactly.
And it sounds like a good idea at first. You think, if I memorize everything, I'll feel more prepared.
But then the interviewer asks the question in a slightly different way, and suddenly everything falls apart.
Exactly. Because when you memorize, you're not learning how to communicate. You're only learning how to repeat.
That is such a huge difference.
Imagine you memorize the answer to, what are your strengths? But the interviewer asks, what do you think you do well at work? It's basically the same question, but because the wording is different, you panic.
And then your brain starts searching for the exact sentence you practiced.
Yes, and that creates stress, long pauses, and confusion. Instead of memorizing complete answers, it's much better to memorize ideas.
I love that. Memorize ideas, not scripts.
For example, if someone asks about your strengths, maybe you already know your 3 main points. You're hardworking, you learn quickly, and you communicate well with others.
So, no matter how they ask the question, you already know the direction of your answer.
Exactly. Then you can speak more naturally. You can adjust your words depending on the question.
That sounds much easier than trying to remember every sentence perfectly.
It is easier, and it sounds more natural. Interviewers can often tell when someone is reciting memorized answers.
Really?
Absolutely. The answer sounds too polished, too stiff, and sometimes it doesn't match the conversation. You can almost hear the person reading invisible notes inside their mind.
And that probably makes the interview feel less real.
Exactly. Interviews are conversations, not speeches. If you sound too rehearsed, the interviewer may wonder who you really are.
That is such a good point because many English learners think sounding robotic means sounding professional.
But the opposite is often true. Sounding human is more professional. Sounding flexible is more professional. Being able to adapt in the moment is a very valuable skill.
So, if you're preparing for an interview, maybe write bullet points instead of full paragraphs?
That's a fantastic strategy. Write keywords, short phrases, and examples. For instance, if you are preparing for the question, "Tell me about yourself," you can think about 3 simple parts.
Your background, your experience, and your future goals.
Exactly. That gives your answer structure without making it sound memorized.
And viewers, if you're finding this useful so far, make sure you like the video and subscribe to Talk Easy Daily because these small interview tips can make a huge difference in real life.
Now, let's talk about another major mistake. Many English learners answer questions with only one short sentence.
Oh, yes. The interviewer asks, "Why do you want this job?" And the answer is just, "Because I like this company."
Exactly. Technically, that answer is not wrong, but it's too short, too simple, and it doesn't tell the interviewer enough.
So even if your English is correct, your answer can still feel weak.
Absolutely. Interviewers want to understand your thinking. They want details. They want examples. A short answer can make you seem uninterested or unprepared.
Even if you're actually very interested.
Exactly. Let's compare 2 answers. The first answer is, "I want this job because I like your company."
That sounds okay, but very basic.
Now, listen to this. "I want this job because I like the way your company focuses on customer service. I also think this role matches my skills, and I would love the chance to learn and grow here."
Wow, that second answer sounds much stronger.
And much more human. Interviewers want to talk to a real person, not a dictionary.
That is such a good point.
So today, we're going to break down the biggest mistakes English learners make in interviews, the hidden reasons behind those mistakes, and the exact strategies you can use to sound more confident, more natural, and more professional.
And if you're already thinking about a past interview where something went wrong, don't worry. By the end of this episode, you may realize it wasn't as bad as you thought.
Because sometimes one small change in the way you answer can completely change the entire interview.
And trust me, one of the mistakes we're about to discuss next is something almost everyone does without realizing it.
So, if you want to avoid that mistake in your next interview, keep watching. That is such a powerful insight. Every answer should help the interviewer picture you as part of the team.
And there is another mistake that is very common. Sometimes English learners speak too quietly because they're afraid of making mistakes.
Yes, this is a big one. When people feel nervous, their voice becomes softer and softer.
And then the interviewer has to ask, "Sorry, can you repeat that?"
Exactly, and every time that happens, your confidence becomes even lower.
I have experienced that before. You already feel nervous, and then when someone asks you to repeat yourself, you suddenly feel embarrassed.
But here's something important to remember. Speaking clearly is more important than speaking perfectly. Even if your grammar is not perfect, if your voice is clear and confident, people will understand you better.
So how can viewers improve that?
One simple trick is to practice speaking a little louder than normal before the interview. Record yourself answering questions and listen to your voice.
That sounds uncomfortable, but probably very helpful.
It is uncomfortable at first, but it works. You may notice that you sound much quieter than you think.
That is true. Sometimes the voice in your head feels louder than your real voice.
Exactly. Another useful tip is to slow down slightly. When people are nervous, they often speak too fast.
Because they want to finish quickly.
Yes, but fast speech can create pronunciation problems. You may skip words, swallow sounds, and make your answer harder to understand.
So slower is actually stronger.
Exactly. A calm pace makes you sound more confident and more professional.
That reminds me of something. Sometimes when people are nervous, they use too many filler words like like, and you know.
That is another huge interview mistake. Small filler words are normal, of course. Everyone uses them sometimes. But if every sentence is full of and like, it can make you sound unsure.
Especially in an interview where first impressions matter so much.
Exactly. Here's a quick tip. Instead of saying when you need time to think, simply pause.
Just stay quiet for a second?
Yes, a short pause sounds much better than many filler words. In fact, pauses can make you sound more thoughtful.
That is so interesting because silence feels scary, but sometimes it actually makes you sound more confident.
Exactly. Imagine someone asks you a difficult question. Instead of saying, well, like, I think, you pause for 2 seconds and then answer clearly.
That already sounds more professional.
And viewers, here's something to think about. What is your biggest interview weakness right now? Is it nervousness, speaking too quietly, using too many filler words? Tell us in the comments, because your answer might help someone else feel less alone.
And coming up next, we're going to talk about one of the most damaging mistakes English learners make in interviews.
This mistake is so common that people often do it without even realizing it.
And once you notice it, you will never answer interview questions the same way again.
One of the most damaging mistakes English learners make in interviews is talking too much about what they want and not enough about what they can give.
Oh, that's interesting.
A lot of people answer questions by focusing only on themselves. They say things like, I want more money, I want experience, I want to improve my English, or I need a better opportunity.
And of course, those things are true.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with wanting those things, but the interviewer is thinking about something different.
They're thinking, how can this person help our company?
Exactly. Interviews are not only about what you want, they're about what value you bring.
So if the interviewer asks, why do you want this job? Maybe it's not enough to only say, because I want to grow.
Right. That answer focuses only on you. A stronger answer connects your goals to the company's needs.
Can you give an example?
Of course. Imagine the weak answer is, I want this job because I need experience and I want to improve my English.
That sounds honest, but maybe not very strong.
Exactly. Now listen to this version. I want this job because I believe my communication skills and positive attitude would help your team. At the same time, I know this role would help me grow professionally.
That sounds so much better because it includes both sides.
Exactly. It shows that the relationship is balanced. You're not only taking, you're also giving.
I think many viewers will realize they have made this mistake before.
And here's another important thing. When you answer interview questions, always try to connect your skills to the job.
So if you're applying for a customer service job, talk about communication.
Exactly. If you're applying for a teaching job, talk about patience and organization. If you're applying for a sales job, talk about confidence and problem solving.
Because the interviewer wants to see that you understand the role.
Yes, one of the worst things you can do is give generic answers that could fit any job in any company.
Like saying, I'm hardworking and I want success.
Exactly. That sounds very general. But if you say, I enjoy helping customers solve problems, and I think that's important in this role, now your answer feels more specific and more relevant.
That instantly makes you sound more prepared.
And preparation is one of the easiest ways to stand out in an interview.
That reminds me of another mistake. Many English learners don't research the company before the interview.
That's a huge mistake, and honestly, it's one of the easiest mistakes to avoid.
Because today, you can learn so much about a company in just 10 minutes online.
Exactly. You can visit the company website. You can read about their products, services, values, and goals. You can even look at their social media pages.
And then, during the interview, you can mention something specific.
Yes, for example, imagine the interviewer asks, "Why do you want to work here?" One person says, "Because I need a job."
That's not very impressive.
But another person says, "I read that your company is expanding into new markets, and I would love to be part of a growing team."
That answer immediately sounds more serious.
Because it shows effort, it shows interest, it shows that you cared enough to learn something before the interview.
And interviewers probably notice that very quickly.
They do. In fact, many interviewers say they're impressed when candidates know even a few small details about the company.
That is such a simple tip, but it can make such a big difference.
Exactly. And here's a myth we should break right now. Many English learners think interview success depends mostly on vocabulary.
Yes, people think if I know big words, I will sound smarter.
But interview success depends much more on structure than vocabulary.
What do you mean by structure?
I mean how you organize your answer. Imagine someone asks, "Tell me about a problem you solved."
Okay.
Okay, a weak answer might jump everywhere. Well, there was this problem at work, and my manager said something, and then I talked to someone, and it was stressful.
That sounds confusing.
Exactly, but a strong answer has a simple structure. First, explain the situation. Second, explain the problem. Third, explain what you did. Fourth, explain the result.
That already sounds much easier to follow.
And when your answer has structure, your English automatically sounds better.
Even if your grammar is not perfect.
Exactly, because organized thinking creates organized speaking.
I think that is such a powerful idea. Sometimes people don't need more vocabulary, they just need a better way to organize their thoughts.
Absolutely. One very useful method is called the STAR method.
I've heard of that before, but I never really understood it.
STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result.
So first you explain the situation.
Yes, then you explain the task or problem. After that, you explain the action you took. Finally, you explain the result.
That sounds incredibly useful for interview questions.
It is, especially for questions like, "Tell me about a challenge," "Tell me about a time you worked in a team," or "Tell me about a mistake you made."
Can you give a quick example?
Of course. In my last job, we had a problem because customers were waiting too long for help. My manager asked me to find a solution. I suggested a new system for organizing customer requests, and after we used it, waiting times became shorter.
That answer is simple, but it sounds very professional.
Exactly. And notice again, the vocabulary is not difficult. The strength comes from the structure.
And viewers, if you're learning something new right now, make sure you subscribe to Talk Easy Daily because we share practical English tips that can help you in real life, not just in the classroom.
Now let's talk about another mistake that can seriously hurt your interview.
This one is probably something almost everyone has done at least once.
Many English learners apologize too much during interviews.
Oh, wow, that is so true.
They say things like, "Sorry, my English is bad." "Sorry, I am nervous." "Sorry, I forgot the word." Or, "Sorry, my pronunciation is terrible."
I think people say those things because they want the interviewer to understand.
Yes, but too much apologizing can make you seem less confident. It makes the interviewer focus on your weakness instead of your strengths.
That is such a good point.
Imagine two candidates. The first one says, "Sorry, my English is not very good."
Okay.
The second one says, "English is not my first language, but I am improving every day, and I am comfortable communicating at work."
Wow, that second answer sounds so much stronger.
Because it focuses on progress, not weakness.
So instead of apologizing for every mistake, you should stay calm and keep going.
Exactly. Most small mistakes are not a big problem unless you make them a big problem.
That is such a powerful line.
And it is true. Sometimes you say one wrong word or make one small grammar mistake and you think the interview is ruined.
But the interviewer may not even notice.
Exactly. Or they notice, but they do not care. They care much more about whether you can communicate clearly and stay calm under pressure.
That is actually very encouraging.
Because it means you don't need perfect English to succeed.
You just need enough confidence to keep speaking.
And coming up next, we're going to talk about body language, eye contact, and the silent mistakes people make during interviews without saying a single word.
And one of those mistakes can completely change the way people see you before you even answer the first question.
Let's talk about something that many people forget during interviews. Your body is speaking even when your mouth is not.
That sounds dramatic, but it is so true.
Imagine two people walking into the same interview room. The first person enters slowly, avoids eye contact, looks down at the floor, and sits with crossed arms.
That already feels nervous.
Exactly. Now imagine the second person walks in with a small smile, makes eye contact, sits up straight, and says, "Thank you for meeting with me today."
That person instantly feels more confident.
And here's the important thing. Maybe both people have the same level of English. Maybe both people are equally qualified. But the second person will probably create a much stronger first impression.
Because confidence is not only about words, it's also about energy.
Exactly. Body language can change the entire feeling of an interview. Even before you answer the first question, the interviewer is already forming an opinion.
That is a little scary.
It can feel scary, but it's actually good news because body language is something you can improve very quickly.
So, what are some of the biggest body language mistakes?
One of the biggest mistakes is avoiding eye contact.
I think a lot of English learners do that because they're nervous.
Yes, when people feel nervous, they often look down, look away, or stare at the table.
Because making eye contact feels too intense.
Exactly. But if you avoid eye contact too much, the interviewer may think you are not confident or not interested.
So, how much eye contact should you make?
You don't need to stare at someone constantly. That would feel strange. But you should try to look at the interviewer when you are listening and when you are answering.
So, natural eye contact, not scary eye contact.
Exactly. Think of it like a normal conversation. Look at the person, then look away for a second, then look back.
That sounds much more manageable.
Another common mistake is having bad posture.
Yes, some people sit like they're trying to disappear.
Exactly. They sit with their shoulders down, their arms crossed, or their head lowered.
And that can make them look insecure.
Yes, but when you sit up straight, keep your shoulders relaxed, and face the interviewer, you immediately seem more confident.
Even if you are still nervous inside.
Absolutely. And this is important because sometimes your body can actually help your mind.
What do you mean?
If you sit like a confident person, you may start to feel more confident. Your body sends signals to your brain.
That is so interesting.
It is. Before an interview, some people even practice standing tall, smiling, and breathing deeply for a few minutes.
Almost like an athlete before a game.
Exactly. Because interviews are performances in a way. You are not pretending to be someone else, but you are showing the best version of yourself.
That is such a good way to think about it.
Another silent mistake is forgetting to smile.
Oh, wow. I know when people are nervous, they can look very serious without meaning to.
Exactly. They are so focused on not making mistakes that they forget to look friendly.
And a smile can make such a huge difference.
It can. A simple smile at the beginning and end of the interview can make you seem warmer, calmer, and easier to talk to.
And interviewers probably remember that.
They do. People remember how you made them feel. If you seem positive and pleasant, that can help a lot.
There's also another mistake people make with body language. They move too much.
Yes, nervous movement can be very distracting. Tapping your fingers, shaking your leg, touching your face, playing with a pen, moving in your chair again and again.
I think people do that without even realizing it.
Exactly. That is why recording yourself can be so helpful. You may notice habits you never knew you had.
That sounds uncomfortable, but probably very useful.
It really is. And once you notice those habits, you can start controlling them.
So maybe before the interview, viewers should practice sitting down and answering questions while recording themselves.
That is one of the best things you can do. You may notice that you speak too fast, look down too much, or move your hands constantly.
And then you can improve those things before the real interview.
Exactly. Here's a quick tip for nervous hands. Hold a notebook or place your hands gently in your lap.
That sounds much better than moving your fingers everywhere.
Exactly. Small physical changes can create a much calmer impression.
And viewers, let us know in the comments if you get more nervous about speaking English or about body language during interviews. It would be really interesting to know which part feels harder for you.
Now let's talk about another interview mistake that surprises many people.
This is the mistake of giving weak answers to difficult questions.
Exactly. Many English learners do okay with simple questions like, "Tell me about yourself," or "Why do you want this job?" But then they panic when they hear more difficult questions.
Questions like, what is your biggest weakness? Or tell me about a mistake you made.
Yes, those questions make people uncomfortable because they do not want to say the wrong thing.
And sometimes people give answers that sound fake.
Exactly.
For example, someone says, "My biggest weakness is that I work too hard."
Everyone has heard that answer before.
Yes, and interviewers usually know it's not honest. It sounds like you are trying too hard to turn a weakness into a strength.
So, what should people do instead?
The best answer is to choose a real weakness, but also explain how you are improving it.
So, maybe you say, "Sometimes I take too much time to finish a task because I want everything to be perfect, but I am learning how to manage my time better."
Exactly. That answer feels honest and balanced.
Because you are showing self-awareness.
Yes, interviewers don't expect you to be perfect. They want to know if you understand yourself and if you're willing to improve.
That is actually very comforting.
It is. The same thing is true when people ask about mistakes. Many English learners are afraid to talk about mistakes because they think it will make them look bad.
But avoiding the question completely probably looks worse.
Exactly. If you say, "I never make mistakes," the interviewer probably won't believe you.
Because everyone makes mistakes.
Exactly. A stronger answer is to share a small mistake, explain what happened, and then explain what you learned.
So the focus should be on the lesson.
Yes. For example, at my last job, I once forgot to reply to an important email because I was very busy. After that, I started using a task list every day so I wouldn't miss anything important.
That answer sounds responsible.
Because it shows growth, and that is what interviewers want to see. They want people who can learn from problems instead of pretending problems never happen.
That is such a valuable mindset, not just for interviews, but for life.
Absolutely. And here's a surprising fact. Sometimes the people who do best in interviews are not the people with the best English.
Really?
Yes. Sometimes they are simply the people who know how to stay calm, tell clear stories, and show a positive attitude.
Calm, confident, reassuring, intelligent, steady pace, natural pauses, slightly analytical, warm authority.
That is such an important reminder for viewers.
Because if you keep waiting until your English is perfect, you may wait forever.
But if you start practicing now, you can already do much better than you think.
Exactly. And coming up next, we are going to talk about real interview stories, common disasters, and the small mistakes that ruined great opportunities.
And some of these stories are going to sound painfully familiar.
Let me tell you a story about someone named David.
Uh-oh, this sounds like one of those painful interview stories.
It is. David was actually very smart. He had good experience, he knew the job well, and his English level was not bad at all.
So what went wrong?
He prepared too much in the wrong way. He memorized every answer word for word.
Oh no.
He practiced for hours. He wrote long paragraphs and repeated them again and again until he could say them perfectly.
That sounds impressive at first.
It does. But during the interview, the interviewer asked him a question he had not prepared for.
Which question?
The interviewer said, "Can you tell me about a time you had a disagreement with a coworker?"
That is a pretty common question.
Yes, but David had not prepared that exact one. He froze. He looked down, became silent, and after a long pause he said, "I do not have disagreements."
Ouch.
Exactly. The interviewer asked again, "Really? You have never had a disagreement with anyone at work?"
And of course, everyone has.
Yes, but David panicked because he was searching for a memorized answer that didn't exist.
That is such a good example of why memorizing is dangerous.
Exactly. If David had prepared ideas instead of scripts, he could have answered naturally. He could have said, "Once I disagreed with a coworker about how to organize a project, but we talked about it and found a solution."
That would have sounded much better.
Much better. The problem was not his English. The problem was that he depended too much on memorization.
I think a lot of viewers are going to recognize themselves in that story.
Here's another story. A woman named Sophia went to an interview for a customer service position.
Okay.
Sophia was very friendly, very polite, and her English was actually quite good.
So what happened?
She kept apologizing during the interview. Every time she made a small mistake, she said, "Sorry." Every time she forgot a word, she said, "Sorry, my English is bad."
Oh, wow.
At one point, the interviewer asked her about her strengths, and before she answered, she said, "Sorry, I am not good at interviews."
That is so sad because she was probably doing better than she thought.
Exactly. But by apologizing again and again, she made the interviewer focus on her nervousness.
Instead of focusing on her strengths.
Exactly. After the interview, she thought she had failed because of her English, but the real problem was her confidence.
That is such an important difference.
And this is something many people do without realizing it. They think they are being humble, but actually they are making themselves less capable.
So if you make a small mistake, just continue.
Exactly. Imagine you say one wrong word. You can simply correct yourself and move on.
Like, I worked there for 3 years. Sorry, I mean 2 years.
Exactly. That sounds calm and professional. But if you say, sorry, my English is terrible, now the whole interview becomes about your mistake.
That is such a useful lesson.
Let me tell you one more story, because this one is something many people never forget.
Okay, now I am curious.
A man named Kareem went to an interview for an office job. He had good qualifications and plenty of experience.
Sounds promising.
Yes, but when the interviewer asked, "Why do you want to work here?" Kareem said, "Because I need money."
Oh no.
Exactly. Now, of course, everyone works because they need money.
Of course.
But that answer made it sound like he didn't care about the company, the role, or the opportunity.
It sounded too honest in the wrong way.
Exactly. A better answer would have been, "I am looking for a stable job where I can use my skills and continue growing."
That sounds so much more professional.
Because it still tells the truth, but it tells the truth in a better way.
That is such a powerful interview skill, knowing how to say something honestly without making it sound negative.
Exactly. Interviews are not about lying. They are about presenting yourself in the strongest possible way.
I love that idea.
Here's another common disaster. Sometimes people answer difficult questions with far too much negativity.
What do you mean?
Imagine the interviewer asks, "Why did you leave your last job?"
That can be a dangerous question.
Very dangerous. Some people start complaining about their old boss, their coworkers, their schedule, their salary, everything.
And that probably creates a bad impression.
It does. Even if your old job was terrible, speaking too negatively makes you seem difficult.
So what should people say instead?
Keep it professional. You can say, "I learned a lot in my last job, but I wanted a new challenge and more opportunities to grow."
That sounds much calmer.
Exactly. You don't need to tell the interviewer every bad thing that happened. Focus on the future, not the drama.
That is such a good life lesson too.
Absolutely. Here's another story that happens all the time. Someone goes to an interview, answers all the questions, and then at the end, the interviewer says, "Do you have any questions for me?"
And the person says no?
Exactly.
That feels like such a small thing, but I know it matters.
It matters a lot. When you say, "No, I do not have any questions," it can make you seem uninterested, even if you are actually very interested. Exactly. Good candidates usually ask one or two thoughtful questions.
Like what?
You can ask, "What does a typical day in this role look like?" Or, "What skills are most important for success in this position?"
Those questions sound really professional.
They do, and they also help you learn more about the company.
So asking questions is not only good for the interviewer, it's good for you too.
Exactly. An interview is a two-way conversation. You are also deciding if the company is right for you.
That is such an important mindset, because many people feel like they are only being judged.
But remember, you are also learning about them.
And viewers, if you have ever made one of these interview mistakes before, don't feel bad. Almost everyone has.
Absolutely. The goal is not to feel embarrassed. The goal is to learn and improve.
Because one bad interview does not mean you are bad at interviews.
Exactly. Sometimes one bad interview is the experience that helps you succeed in the next one.
That is such a powerful thought.
And coming up next, we are going to talk about advanced interview strategies that can make you sound more fluent, more professional, and more confident in English.
And one of those strategies is something you can practice in just 10 minutes a day.
One advanced strategy that can completely change your interviews is learning how to buy yourself time.
Buy yourself time?
Yes, many English learners think they need to answer immediately after every question.
Because silence feels awkward.
Exactly. But native speakers don't always answer immediately either. Sometimes they pause, think, and organize their ideas.
So if the interviewer asks a difficult question, it's okay to take a moment.
Absolutely. In fact, a short pause can make you sound more thoughtful. You don't need to rush.
But what can you say while you were thinking?
There are many natural phrases you can use. For example, "That is a great question." Or, "Let me think about that for a moment." Or, "I haven't thought about that before, but I would say."
Those phrases sound very natural.
They do, and they give your brain a few extra seconds to prepare.
That is such a useful trick, because sometimes the problem isn't English. Sometimes you just need time to think.
Exactly. Here's another strategy. Learn a few flexible phrases that you can use in many situations.
Like what?
Phrases like, one example would be, "In my experience, one thing I learned was, I believe this is important because, what I enjoy most is."
Oh wow, those phrases can fit many different questions.
Exactly. If you know these kinds of sentence starters, you don't need to create every answer from zero.
That must make speaking feel easier.
It does. Think of these phrases like building blocks. They help you connect your ideas more smoothly.
So instead of stopping and thinking about grammar, you already have a structure ready.
Exactly. For example, imagine the interviewer asks, "Why are you a good fit for this role?"
Okay.
You can begin with, "I believe I am a good fit for this role because." That sentence starter immediately gives you direction.
And then you can continue with your skills and experience.
Exactly. Another strategy is to practice telling short stories about your work experience.
Why stories?
Because stories are easier to remember than random facts. Imagine someone asks, "Tell me about a time you solved a problem."
Instead of trying to invent an answer, you already have a story prepared.
Exactly. You can prepare 3 or 4 simple stories from your life.
Like a time you helped a customer, solved a problem, worked in a team, or learned from a mistake.
Exactly. Then, during the interview, you can adapt those stories to different questions.
That is so smart.
For example, one story about helping a customer could work for questions about communication, teamwork, problem solving, or handling pressure.
So you don't need 20 different stories. You just need a few good ones.
Exactly. And when you tell stories, remember to keep them simple. Do not make them too long.
Because if your answer is too long, you might lose focus.
Yes, try to keep your story clear. Start with the situation, explain what happened, explain what you did, and then explain the result.
That's STAR method again.
Exactly. It works because it gives your answer a beginning, middle, and end.
There is also something else that helps people sound more confident, using positive language.
Absolutely. The words you choose can completely change the feeling of your answer.
Can you give an example?
Of course. Imagine someone asks, "How do you handle pressure?" A negative answer might be, "I get stressed easily, but I try my best."
That does not sound very strong.
Exactly. A more positive answer would be, "I stay calm under pressure by organizing my tasks and focusing on one thing at a time."
That sounds much more professional.
Because the second answer focuses on solutions, not problems.
So even when you talk about challenges, try to use positive language.
Exactly. For example, instead of saying, "I am bad at public speaking," you can say, "I am still improving my public speaking skills."
That feels much more optimistic.
And interviewers like candidates who sound positive because positive people are easier to work with.
That is such a simple thing, but it matters so much.
Here's another advanced strategy. Practice answering questions out loud, not only in your head.
That is a huge difference.
It really is. Many people think they are prepared because they read questions and think about answers silently.
But then when they actually have to speak, it feels completely different.
Exactly. Speaking is a physical skill. Your mouth needs practice too.
That is such a good point.
You can practice in front of a mirror, you can record yourself on your phone, you can even pretend someone is interviewing you.
That might feel strange at first.
It does feel strange at first, but the more you practice speaking out loud, the more natural it becomes.
And maybe viewers can practice with a friend too.
Absolutely. Practicing with another person is one of the best ways to improve.
Because then you get used to answering unexpected questions.
Exactly. And here's a quick challenge for everyone watching. After this video, choose 3 common interview questions and answer them out loud.
Not in your head, out loud.
Exactly. You may be surprised by how different it feels.
And if you want, you can even pause this video later and practice.
Absolutely. Because confidence does not come from reading tips. Confidence comes from repetition.
That is such an important line.
Here's one more advanced tip that many people forget. Prepare your opening and closing very carefully.
Why are those parts so important?
Because people remember the beginning and the end more than the middle.
That is true.
If you start the interview with energy, confidence, and a smile, that creates a strong first impression.
And if you finish the interview well, that is the last thing the interviewer remembers.
Exactly. At the beginning, be ready to say something like, "Thank you for meeting with me today. I'm excited to be here."
That sounds warm and professional.
And at the end, say something like, "Thank you for your time. I enjoyed learning more about the role."
That sounds so much better than just standing up and leaving.
Exactly. Small details can make a huge difference.
And viewers, if you are enjoying this conversation, make sure you like the video, subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, and share this with a friend who has an interview coming soon.
Because sometimes one simple tip can completely change someone's confidence.
And next, we are going to bring everything together with the biggest lessons, the most important reminders, and the final mindset you need before your next interview.
Because once you understand that final mindset, interviews may never feel the same again. Let's bring everything together, because by now you've probably noticed something very important.
Interviews are not really about perfect English.
Exactly. They are about communication. They are about confidence. They are about showing the interviewer who you are and what you can bring.
And that should make viewers feel a little less afraid.
Absolutely. Because if you've been waiting until your English becomes perfect, you may be waiting forever.
But if you can communicate clearly, answer calmly, and stay positive, you already have a strong chance.
Let's quickly review the biggest interview mistakes English learners make.
First, trying to sound perfect instead of sounding natural.
Second, memorizing full answers instead of memorizing ideas.
Third, giving answers that are too short.
Fourth, speaking too quietly or too quickly.
Fifth, using too many filler words like and like.
Sixth, focusing only on what you want instead of what you can offer.
Seventh, not researching the company.
Eighth, apologizing too much for your English.
Ninth, forgetting about body language, eye contact, and posture.
10th, giving weak answers to difficult questions like what is your weakness or tell me about a mistake you made.
And finally, forgetting to ask questions at the end of the interview.
Exactly. Now here's the most important thing to remember. Every interview is practice.
That is such a powerful mindset.
Maybe your first interview isn't perfect. Maybe you feel nervous. Maybe you forget a word. Maybe you make a grammar mistake.
That does not mean you failed.
Exactly. It means you are learning. Every interview teaches you something. Every interview makes you stronger.
And sometimes the interview you think went badly is actually much better than you imagine.
That is so true. Many people leave interviews feeling terrible and then they get the job.
Because they were focusing on their small mistakes, while the interviewer was focusing on their attitude and personality.
Exactly. Remember this. Interviewers are not searching for robots. They are searching for real people.
People who can communicate.
People who can learn.
People who can stay calm under pressure.
And people who bring positive energy.
So before your next interview, do not tell yourself, my English is not good enough.
Tell yourself, I am prepared. I am improving. I can communicate.
That simple change in mindset can make such a huge difference.
And if you have an interview coming soon, here's your challenge. Practice 3 common interview questions out loud today.
Not in your head, out loud.
Exactly. You may be surprised by how different it feels.
And if you want, you can even pause this video later and practice.
Absolutely, because confidence does not come from reading tips. Confidence comes from repetition.
That is such an important line.
Here's one more advanced tip that many people forget. Prepare your opening and closing very carefully.
Why are those parts so important?
Because people remember the beginning and the end more than the middle.
That is true.
If you start the interview with energy, confidence, and a smile, that creates a strong first impression.
And if you finish the interview well, that is the last thing the interviewer remembers.
Exactly. At the beginning, be ready to say something like, "Thank you for meeting with me today. I'm excited to be here."
That sounds warm and professional.
And at the end, say something like, "Thank you for your time. I enjoyed learning more about the role."
That sounds so much better than just standing up and leaving.
Exactly. Small details can make a huge difference.
And viewers, if you are enjoying this conversation, make sure you like the video, subscribe to Talk Easy Daily, and share this with a friend who has an interview coming soon.
Because sometimes one simple tip can completely change someone's confidence.
And next, we are going to bring everything together with the biggest lessons, the most important reminders, and the final mindset you need before your next interview.
Because once you understand that final mindset, interviews may never feel the same again. Let's bring everything together. Because by now, you've probably noticed something very important.
Interviews are not really about perfect English.
Exactly. They are about communication. They are about confidence. They are about showing the interviewer who you are and what you can bring.
And that should make viewers feel a little less afraid.
Absolutely. Because if you've been waiting until your English becomes perfect, you may be waiting forever.
But if you can communicate clearly, calmly answer, and stay positive, you already have a strong chance.
Let's quickly review the biggest interview mistakes English learners make.
First, trying to sound perfect instead of sounding natural.
Second, memorizing full answers instead of memorizing ideas.
Third, giving answers that are too short.
Fourth, speaking too quietly or too quickly.
Fifth, using too many filler words like and like.
Sixth, focusing only on what you want instead of what you can offer.
Seventh, not researching the company.
Eighth, apologizing too much for your English.
Ninth, forgetting about body language, eye contact, and posture.
10th, giving weak answers to difficult questions like what is your weakness or tell me about a mistake you made.
And finally, forgetting to ask questions at the end of the interview.
Exactly. Now here's the most important thing to remember. Every interview is practice.
That is such a powerful mindset.
Maybe your first interview isn't perfect. Maybe you feel nervous. Maybe you forget a word. Maybe you make a grammar mistake.
That does not mean you failed.
Exactly. It means you are learning. Every interview teaches you something. Every interview makes you stronger.
And sometimes the interview you think went badly is actually much better than you imagine.
That is so true. Many people leave interviews feeling terrible and then they